This is the DJI Goggles 3, and one of the main complaints that I have seen from people about these goggles isn't the goggles themselves, it's this thing on the back here, which is the battery. And the fact that it is built in, it doesn't offer them enough battery life, especially if they're a pro user and they want to do something like streaming. Now, these goggles are designed to use this integrated battery, and whilst you can actually use these whilst plugged into USB and charging, that doesn't help people who want to use it with something like Cosmos Streamer, which means you need that USB port to actually get the data out. Today, we're going to do a mod and show you how to power these goggles off an external battery rather than using the built-in battery. Now, just to be crystal clear, if you do this, you're going to get rid of your warranty on your goggles, so obviously do take that into account, although they are quite reliable, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. And also, whenever you're messing around with things like batteries and stuff like this, there is always risk, but hopefully by the end of this one, you'll have a way of powering them off your own LiPo. Okay, so to explain what the issue is first of all, there are many people that are unhappy with the battery life that they get from the DJI Goggles 3 as a result of it having this built-in battery. Now, you can actually use these goggles whilst charging them from the USB-C port. However, that isn't always possible for people because they may want to use that USB-C output for Cos Streamer and others that allows them to stream out their DJI system in a professional situation or in a hobby use. So, what we're going to look at today is the options around powering these goggles externally on the battery at the back, and if I'm able to, we're also going to have a look at if we can do a bit of a mod on a USB-C cable to allow us to power it, but whilst streaming as well. But the most important mod is going to be about removing this battery and adding on an XT60 to allow you to power it from your own external supply. Now, there are going to be some caveats to doing this, and one of them is if you're going to do this, you're not going to be able to power this off direct battery voltage. You're going to need a BEC for it, which we will talk about through the video. But the first thing we're going to need to do is actually tear this battery section down and have a look. We have some screws on the back, so we're going to do that. We're going to get it apart, and then we're going to take a look at what's inside and then what we need to do to fit a connector. So the first thing we need to do is strip down the goggles. So we're going to undo these 4 screws on the back. Now, I haven't actually gone into this myself, so this is a journey of discovery for myself. I actually did the on the Integras, but it is a bit of a different setup on these because I don't recall the Integras having the screw on the back. If I remember, the Integras had the piece you pull off without the screw. Well, at least I don't remember going into this. So we've removed the 4 screws, and now we need to have a look at what happens next. Now, I'm going to guess we need to remove this. This is held on with a sticky pad, which comes off very, very easily. I'm going to pop that safe over there. There are no screws in that, so we probably didn't need to remove that. So you've learned something. So let's get ourselves a plastic pry tool and get in there. So we're going to use a trusty guitar pick, and we're going to see if we can pop this open. There we go. We're managing to get in. Let's work our way around. Slipped. Definitely is willing to move on the side there. There we go. Oh, pop that again. It's not as easy as it looks, you know. What I want to try and do is get it open enough that I can... There we go. Starting to hear it unclip. Here we are. Getting there. There we are. Finally, we're inside. And then we can see the batteries. Okay, so let's let's see. How are these batteries held? I can't tell if they're tagged in or are they just... They're definitely... yeah, I think they are tagged. Right, so let's carefully undo this. And I need to do this on film so I can see what I'm doing when I'm doing it as well. Now, I have done this on the other goggles before. So that one goes on top. That one goes underneath, and then you can see the cable is through that one. My camera's a bit dark there. Let's just brighten that up. There you go. Hopefully you can see that a bit better now. So then, and this is the one with the cable that goes through. Oh, there we are. There's that plastic piece. Oh, there we go. We can now see there is actually some electronics in here. And then there's the batteries. Are they soldered? Oh, yeah, they're definitely soldered. So what you can see is we've got a wire there. So let me just grab me tweezers that were next to me and just vanished. No, there we go. So I think what we'll do is pop that through there and get that out the way. So now you can see the wire, which comes in and goes around the wheel in the middle and then down into here. We've got a bit of a cover on this. So let's peel that back. There definitely is battery circuitry here. So we've got, let's pop that off out the way. We've got our connector that's going out. So we've got black, green, yellow and red. And then we've got our little battery board with our battery inputs over here and here. Okay, so just to show you this, we're first of all just going to go onto the two main connections. And this is probably where I would fit a connector. So you can see there we've got 7 volt. So that's the current battery level that we're getting. We have 3.5 on that one. My battery's quite low at the moment. 3.54. So both batteries are at the same level at the moment. Now, you could at this point basically fit yourself on an XT external power onto these here, and we will do that in this video and go from that point there. But I also want to have a look at what this connector's doing going into the goggles. So we are going to go and have a look from ground, which is that there. So I'm going to assume that screw is ground. Yes, it is. So that's, we've got a ground point here, which is nice and good to see. So we're going to go on to the red, which we're getting battery voltage. So I'm going to predict between negative, which is the black, and red, we're getting battery voltage into the goggle. We are, absolutely. So the black and the red is giving us battery voltage. I am guessing the yellow and the green are the cells for balancing. There doesn't seem to be too much circuitry on here, but there are a few transistors. But I think what will be the best option is to leave this all in place, remove the batteries, and then go on to here with our external connector and power it on a correctly voltaged back. Now, there is space in here for you to put the back, so you could do it on, 12 volts, 16 volts, whatever you want to do. You're going to want to put a back in that gives us, say, 8 volts. That's going to be a good position to be in. That'll give us plenty of power for the goggles. So what we'll do is let's get this apart and get these batteries off. We'll look at doing that, and then we'll look at actually connecting up the external supply. Okay, so let's remove the screws for this board. because we're going to have to remove this board with the batteries, and this is all probably going to come out as one unit. We're going to carefully unwrap that from around there. I don't really feel the need to disconnect this from the goggles. You can do, but it's glued. I don't really need to do that at this point. We could if we want to, but what we're now going to do is lift this up. We're going to need to be a bit careful of that green wire because that goes down under there as well. And then we can see the batteries. There's definitely some more circuitry on here. So we've got a balance for the one battery because you've got a negative going down there for that one battery. And that's going to allow us to balance that. I wonder if that second green then is a negative. So this is all connected. So what we're going to want to do first of all is unsolder this board from the batteries. We're going to do that here and here. We're going to have to be careful doing it, but we're going to unsolder that. And then we're going to connect on our external supply. If you didn't want to unsolder, you could potentially just cut these if you wanted to with a pair of snips, but I want to do it properly, so let's do it with the soldering iron. Okay, so let's remove the negative terminal first, and then we'll take a look at removing the positive one. We need to just be a bit careful there. Now, you're going to need a soldering iron with a fairly decent sized tip for this, or something that at least is able to put plenty of heat in. We've undone that. Let's hop that around to that side there. Again, we're going to make our lives easy and just make sure we're nice and comfortable as we're doing it. The board is actually very hot as I'm doing that, so I'm just going to grab that by there. There we go. And then we're going to want to unsolder our little green wire. Now this currently has a bit of stuff on it to protect it, glue. There we go. There we go. It's all dealt with. Now our batteries are free. We can put them safely to one side, and then we've got our PCB. Okay, now at this point you're talking to Ian a little bit in the future, because as I said earlier, the plan was to connect onto these two pads here. However, I have found a problem. I've done some testing, and that's why you can see some heat shrink tubing down here, and actually you can't connect onto these because whilst you can, it is expecting your single cell voltage on that other wire that we removed. So whilst technically, if you wanted to connect this to a much bigger battery pack, you'd be okay. You'd need to use a 2-cell pack and then connect that middle wire down between the two so it can read the single voltage of each. However, to power it from an external supply, you can't. I then tried powering it directly off the power cables, and it doesn't work. However, I do now believe I found a solution. You can't just remove this board. It needs to be connected. But what we need to do is power the positive on this little round pad you see here, and power the negative on this little pad you see down here on either side of the connector, leaving this board connected. You're going to want a BEC to power this. Now, there are lots of cheap BECs available on the market that don't cost a huge amount of money. You can get them on Amazon and others. I'm going to be honest with you, your goggles cost a lot of money, and I would strongly advise choosing a fairly good quality BEC. Certainly, I wouldn't skimp on one and risk causing damage to your goggles. Now, for the purpose of this video, I am going to say do what I say, not do what I do, because I am going to use one of the cheap Amazon BECs because it's the only one I've got. But please do spend some money on a good one. Now, we're going to use this to power it, but before we do this, we're going to add something, and that is this. This is a diode. I'll put a part number for the diode that you want to try and use up on the screen. This one here is just a standard rectifier diode, and we're going to connect this on to the positive. Now, the reason we want to use this is that our goggles will try to, when plugged in by USB, to charge the battery. And as there is no battery, I want to prevent any voltage going back up into this back. It's unlikely that it would cause damage, but I don't want it to even try. So what we're going to do as part of this circuit is connect this diode to our positive and put this between the back and our board. Now, before we do any of that, though, we need to set the voltage, because we need to know how much voltage this back is putting out, and we need to set it to the right amount, and you need to make sure you do it with the diode connected, because the diode will take a little bit of voltage. It will have voltage drop. So what I'm going to do is solder the diode to our connector there, and then we are going to set the voltage on the back to 8 volts, and that is going to be 8 volts on the output of the diode, and we will then solder it to our board. Okay, so what I'm going to do is connect a LiPo to our back and power it up, and then we are going to check our voltage output on our diode. What I'm going to do actually is just pop that down into there, and that can stay there, and that will give us our negative. And then if I just move that to the side, you can see there we've got a positive. If we just get this in the right place, we should then be able... No, we'll go there instead. We've got 7.76 volts. Let me just get that in the right place so it's connected. There we go, 7.76. And then what we're going to do is adjust the voltage on our back to get us to 8 volts on the output. So I'm going to go with 8. Because I think 8 is a good point. There we go, 8.02, absolutely fine. You could go to 8.4 would be absolutely fine max, but I don't think there's any need to go too close. We'll go to 8. It's not quite full charge voltage, but it's certainly not going to give us a problem. If I was doing this permanently, I would do it a bit tidier, but what you can see is we've got our negative going to that pad there, and we've got our positive going to that pad there. I've put a bit of wire on between the diode and the board rather than soldering directly to it. That way it gives a bit of flexibility and it gives far less chance of ripping off the pad. So what I would then do is just heat shrink over our diode for some protection. And then we are ready to go. Okay, so to demonstrate it works, I'm going to plug in our battery. As I did that, you will see that the LEDs came on. I'm going to press it again, and it shows a battery level of 1 and 1 flashing. I'm going to power it on. We will wait for the goggles to kick in. It'll take couple of seconds, as it usually does, and there we go. You can see that my goggles have connected to my phone. We're powered up. The battery level says 27%. That is the permanent level that I get on the screen. You can just see it down there in the corner, but what you can see is we are powering the goggles externally. So if you are someone who was looking to get these goggles powered by an external battery, by an XT60, by whatever means you want, you're going to need a back, but it absolutely can be done. Now, just to prove that this also works with the likes of Cosmo Streamer, if you don't know what Cosmo Streamer is, it is an app and a device. So if you want to buy their own hardware, you can, but you can also install it on a Raspberry Pi as well. It is a paid app, but it allows you to get HDMI output from your DJI goggles. So here I've currently got this connected to my capture card. I'm going to plug in the USB-C cable into the goggles, and then we're going to select the correct input. And now you can see the video from Cosmo Streamer on HDMI. This is actually DJI 04 that you're looking at here, so you can even do this with 04 as well. And people use this in a broadcast environment in situations where they want to get that HDMI output from the DJI goggles. I am making a video on Cosmo Streamer separately, so if you're interested in seeing that, please do make sure you are subscribed, because I'll be releasing that in the near future. But again, This is really the setup that I wanted to demonstrate because this is one people often ask for. If I just go back to the overhead, people are often looking to have a situation where they can power their goggles on a much bigger battery than they would get from it internally and use it with Cosmos Streamer like you see here, allowing you to then use it in this broadcast setup if you wanted to then stream that out into a client or do whatever you want to do with it. Now, I am uploading some of the information that you've seen in this video today onto my FPV wiki as well. For those who don't know, I have a wiki where I put a lot of information about the things that I do. So if you go under DJI drones and you go under goggles 3, further down now, I've added an image and I'll add a bit of wording to this a little bit later. But under all of the info, you'll now see DJI goggles 3 external battery mod. And I've put a picture here that shows you exactly where to pin it out. I've also got the part number here of the reverse protection diode, which is a 1N4001, just a standard rectifier diode will do, and that way you could plug it into the USB without any problems. Okay, so that's really all there is to show you on this. Now, as I've said already, I'm not putting mine back together because I'm actually going to put it back properly because this doesn't really suit me. I'm actually fine with the internal battery, so I'm going to go and make mine work normally again. However, if you did want to power yours externally, this is one way to do it. Now, as I said at the video start, there is also other things that you could do to be able to do this. The Cosmos Streamer website shows a cable that allows you to split out power for the Raspberry Pi and the goggles, but you could also use this to put power in if you wanted to as well, but obviously you couldn't use that with Cosmos Streamer. It is complicated when it comes to making cables for this. You could actually do this making a cable that really charged the goggles, data for the goggles, and provided power for the Pi Cosmos Streamer device as well. But you're ending up adding BECs and diodes and things like that. And whilst you're going to add a diode onto this, I think this is probably just the simplest and quickest way to do it. Not the tidiest right now, but it works. So hopefully you found this video interesting. If you have and got any questions or anything like that, please do put them down below and I will try and answer them. I will put the image of this up on my FPV wiki as well for people. If you're interested in seeing that, there will be a link to it below. And finally, I just want to say, if you'd like to support the channel to allow us to keep making content in the future, please do consider checking out the links to my Patreon as well as buy me a coffee. It is only through the support of my patrons we're able to keep making content on this channel. And if you'd like to support us to allow us to keep doing it in the future, please do check it out. I want to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreons. We would not be able to do this without your support. Anyway, that's it from me on this one. Stay safe. I will speak to you soon.